From the end to the start was something I never intended to get this far in. I've currently finished 90 full-colored pages of it. I started writing the story on January 16th of this year, but the creation of one character started many years back. Gervin Horncat, or just Gervin at the time, was a character I made in Flip-A-Clip while I was in 7th grade. The first time I ever drew him was using the song Community Gardens. So here's a clip of that.
Full disclosure, I am a monster, a creature of despair, not that that should be a cause for concern.
I never finished that animation, but I continued animating Gervin. When I named him, I thought the name Gavin was a good name, but I always try to make the names of my characters uniquer, so Gervin it is. He was featured and starred in many of my animations. Gervin's entire thing was that he's stressed and sad and has these little monsters following him around. He himself was also a monster, well, part monster. I used to draw his monster forms really creepy. I don't draw them nearly as creepy anymore. I started drawing him less when I made a design of him in color, and he was gray instead of white, and he had blue eyes instead of yellow eyes. It was just not Gervin. I actually hated that design and still kind of do. I started drawing him more sparingly and less and less. That was until about 2 years ago when another character was introduced into his universe. Stormy Purple Cat, or well, just Purple Cat at the time. This is also when I started calling him Horncat instead of Gervin. I did this to make the characters seem less real. You know, they're just fictional characters. Their names are what they are at face value. Someone who didn't know the characters could just point them out and say, oh, the purple cat, or the cat with the horn. Now that with Purple Cat introduced, there's an entire new plot, or plot element per se. Okay, now, instead of just being an edgy monster guy, he's an edgy monster guy that goes through a breakup. Horncat also has new special powers. He has psychic abilities, and only one monster that lives in his horn. It was very hard for Gervin to control this curse. Stormy was one of the very few people to accept Horncat for who he is. Curse and all. I made a couple animations with them. I used feral designs for the characters, you know, they were just little kitty cats. They would hang out with each other in the forest. One time I called it Assorted Cat Universe in a school notebook, but that name just didn't stick. But you know what did stick? Fizz Evil Cat, or just Evil Cat. Evil Cat was Gervin's ex-friend, who was just evil. He was just cartoonishly evil. Downright plotting and scheming. I came to realize he wasn't actually like that, and that was just Gervin's warped perception of reality after Fizz cut him off. And I made this unfinished animatic for them that set the stage for most of Gervin's backstory. Let's let the animatic play. This was originally supposed to be way longer and show the entirety of Gervin's story. Fizz and Gervin were childhood best friends that became friends in elementary but split apart in middle school due to Gervin's heavy reliance on Fizz. Fizz would always stand up to bullies and listen to Gervin. While brewing up ideas for the comic, there was this art contest the school let us get in called Vase. You can make anything for it, as long as there's no drugs, violence, or sex. How can I make this about Gervin Horncat? I decided to make this little set featuring Horncat and Purple Cat walking down the street. This entire piece is to represent the good times in Gervin's life and how it's gone! I was originally going to make the background out of cardboard, but instead, I went with wood. Making the figures was hard. The first Gervin Horncat figure couldn't even handle the oven, and he couldn't stand on his own. I ended up not painting Stormy and only using the Gervin figure. I named this project From the End to the Start. See, the comic is named after the set, not the other way around. When writing the comic, I thought the name of this piece would fit well for it. Okay, on to the grand day. January 16th, I was at school on my laptop, and I was writing this thing called Horncat Universe. Now, I was getting attached to these characters, so you know what? Let's kill off the main character! So it's called From the End to the Start because issue 0 starts at the end of his life, and the other issues begin at the start of his life. See, I was in a really horrible place when I wrote the prologue, but that kind of fueled my passion for this project. It helped me lock in. After I wrote the prologue, I was debating whether I should make it a comic or not. I looked to the grave of abandoned comic projects beside me. I remember I had this fluffy dog notebook I won from beating my younger cousins at a Christmas party game, so I scribbled together the prologue. It was fun. Issue 0 is about Gervin Horncat exploring what it's like being a ghost and revisiting old places. I liked how it turned out. I wrote more chapters about the story. We're on chapter 10. No one's stopping me. One day, my dad was like, hey, so there's this child entrepreneur thing where you can sell things. I'm 16. I want to share my comics with more people, so there's these things called printers. They can print images. In the span of just 2.5 weeks, I redrew the entirety of the prologue, which is 53 pages long, in black and white digitally. Formatting, printing, and cutting it was hell. Sometimes the printer wouldn't print, and sometimes the cutter wouldn't cut, and everything was horrible. But I finally got it to work. I made 4 copies and sold 3, plus some other art at that very short show. I could have sold the 4th one, but I didn't want to sell it to a 7-year-old. Anyways, this gave me newfound confidence. There was an upcoming event called Free Comic Book Day on May 3rd. I got my dad to sign me up. The event had free comics and art vendors like me. I began printing many comics. I went through 3 ink cartridges, and I got in! I was very joyous. I printed over 20 comic books. That includes issue 0 and issue 1. I was there for 10 hours and sold out all of my comics in the first half of the day. With the profit and a week straight of just coloring, I was able to self-publish and make a full-colored version of issue 0. A couple copies are at Bedrock City Comics, and a few are on my Etsy too. Issue 1 is officially out on my Etsy. I just finished that up. It's about Gervin's past and him meeting Fizz, Evil Cat, or just Good Cat at the time in the timeline. Well, it's about him meeting Fizz for the first time. Links in the description. I'm gonna continue working on the series and see where that leads me. I'm currently working on issue 2 right now. We're a third through that, so yeah.